That old cliché that Turkey is a bridge between East and West seems not just tired, but dead in the water. The gulf between here and Europe has become a chasm. Turkey isolated, self-absorbed, suspicious and afraid. Nation, flag, motherland, state, says this poster. President Erdogan tying his country's destiny to his own as its undisputed leader. It was on this bridge between Europe and Asia 6 months ago that a military coup against him failed after protesters chased Turkish soldiers away. And in its shadow, another symbol of Turkey's rampant insecurity. The Reyna nightclub, where 39 people were shot dead and dozens injured by an ISIS gunman on New Year's Eve. The seasonal decorations are still hanging here awkwardly. And in a corner lie the abandoned coats, hats and handbags, even the spectacles of those who cowered in terror. As ISIS is driven from Syria and Iraq, this is its all too convenient battlefield next door. More than 400 people have been killed in terrorist attacks in Turkey in the last 18 months. President Erdogan has argued that the best way of stopping this chaos is to give him more power. But it's also an opportunity for him to silence his critics, much as the coup attempt against him was last year.
I saw my name in a government's decree in the internet.
In his sparse living room on Istanbul's Asian shore, Recep Çevik is one of 100,000 civil servants who've lost their jobs after finding their names on a list of alleged coup supporters. Mr. Çevik had been the deputy head of this secondary school and teaching for 15 years. His daughter Bera is still a pupil there, but he is now banned, so stigmatised that he can't find a job doing anything else. What does the government say that you're guilty of? Guilty of what?
They say you are a terrorist.
A terrorist?
Yeah. I can't explain anything. They don't believe me. You are guilty. The government is right.
Mr. Çevik seems like a broken man.
My old students.
This photograph of his former pupils, a souvenir of a career in ruins. In Turkey, it's not a case of rounding up the usual suspects, but casting the net far and wide. 40,000 people have been jailed in a nationalist witch hunt, a purge in the name of saving the nation. Aslı Erdoğan is a famous writer who recently emerged from 136 days in custody, even though her trial for being an alleged member of a terrorist group hasn't even begun. She's written for a pro-Kurdish newspaper, now forced to close, but says she still doesn't know why she was singled out.
There are many, hundreds of columnists in Turkey, sharper than me, more critical, more... So why me? I have absolutely no idea.
Is this country heading towards elected dictatorship, do you think?
Well, if I use the word dictatorship, I'll go back to jail. So I think this is the answer to your question anyway.
Çay içen var mı gençler?
Şenol Baran is chief tea maker at Cumhuriyet, Turkey's leading opposition newspaper, and even he has to watch his words. Earlier this month, he was jailed for 9 days after a police guard at the paper overheard him saying he wouldn't serve tea to President Erdogan.
Bana yönelten suçlama Cumhurbaşkanı'na hakaretti.
I am accused of insulting the president. In the police statement, apart from the words, "I wouldn't serve him tea," the police claimed I used an insulting word. That's not a word I would use. People know. I've worked here in the newspaper for 12 years.
Several Cumhuriyet journalists have been imprisoned, and even their tea maker, who didn't write a word, seems the victim of state-sanctioned paranoia, and under supervision until his case goes to court.
Denetimli serbestliğe bırakıldım.
They released me under condition of judicial control. I have to go to a police station 3 days a week. I have no right to leave Istanbul.
dava ne zaman bilmeyecektim yani. Bana biraz
I think this is tragicomic. I'm sorry for myself and for my country, and I'm afraid I can be punished for what I say.
Last week, Turkish journalists were among those marching in memory of Hrant Dink, the editor of an Armenian newspaper who was assassinated on this Istanbul street a decade ago. The security was intense. Turkey is governed under a state of emergency now, and any public gathering is a potential terrorist target. But what was most striking was watching one of Turkey's best-known broadcasters covering the event via mobile phone. Banu Güven is a household name here, though her TV channel was closed down by police after the coup attempt. Using social media is, she says, the only way she can work. Do you think you will ever get a job in a big broadcaster again?
Not in foreseeable future. No. I mean, the mainstream media is finished. It just belongs to the president and his men here in Turkey.
The irony is that President Erdogan famously broadcast by mobile phone himself to protest against the coup and survive it. Since then, over 160 media and publishing organisations have been shut down. This is a country which didn't have a successful coup last year, yet strangely feels as if it did. Even journalists who condemned that coup have been swept up in its wake. Among them Ahmed Şık, facing up to 7.5 years in jail for alleged terrorist propaganda. His wife says he has never advocated violence.
The message is to make the people, the public, silent, and also the journalism silent, because they don't want any critical journalist who ask the right questions.
Is he guilty of anything, your husband?
No, he is just a journalist, and he is a very good journalist.
Last weekend, Turkey's parliament voted for a new constitution which would give the president unprecedented executive power. The role of prime minister will be scrapped,
Parlamento güzel bir cevap verdi.
and Mr. Erdogan could, in theory, rule until 2029. That is, if the Turkish public back his plans in a referendum this spring. And while many Turks are also frightened of the prospect of one-man rule stretching for years ahead, many others feel reassured by the idea of the same man looking after them, because the threats are so very grave.
On the night of the coup,
Hilal Kaplan is a newspaper columnist and my first interviewee who isn't nervous about speaking openly. Under Erdogan, women like her are much freer to wear headscarves.
you see all the pictures of PKK members here.
And she says foreigners simply don't understand the danger posed by multiple enemies within. You're a journalist. You can't be proud of the fact that Turkey has more journalists in jail than China.
I mean, it's not an issue of being proud or not. It's not like I am very much enjoying what's happening in Turkey. For instance, one of the suicide bombers used to work as a journalist. So this should tell us something. It doesn't mean everyone who is persecuted at the moment is guilty. I don't know that. But when you look case by case, you can see that there is this country fighting for terrorist organizations, and there are so many journalists supporting and promoting their cause and their arguments and etc.
And even if Erdogan's Turkey does turn its back on democratic norms, the fact is that many Turks might actually agree.
We are a democratic country and he is the elected leader. He doesn't lose elections.
So
For
this
instance,
is
AK
Turkey's
party-
choice, is what you're saying. The direction of the
Exactly.
country is the choice of the people.
The choice of the Turkish people should be respected.
Still, Turkey seems adrift from its usual moorings as the place where East and West coexist. A beacon of relative stability? Well, it can't call itself that any longer. Jonathan Rugman, Channel 4 News, Istanbul.